Welcome to the Explainer. The device you're watching this on right now has a pretty wild secret history. It wasn't just invented once, nope. It's actually been radically reinvented time and time again, completely changing its identity along the way. And that's exactly what this is. It's a story. This isn't going to be some dry timeline of technical specs. It's a real narrative of transformation, of how one of the most powerful tools humanity has ever created has changed its very definition over and over again. Seriously, take a second. What picture pops into your head? For most of us, I'm willing to bet it's something that fits neatly on our desk, or maybe in our lap, or even right in our pocket. Yeah, we see this tool that's so deeply personal, right? It connects us to this massive global network for pretty much everything, from our jobs to just kicking back and watching a movie. It's basically an extension of ourselves. But here's the thing. That is absolutely not what a computer used to be. For the folks who actually invented it, a computer was this colossal, giant brain. I'm talking a machine that took up an entire room, that only a handful of scientists and military planners could even get near, and its job was to crunch numbers for things like calculating where a missile was going to land. So getting from that giant brain to the device in your pocket wasn't some simple straight line evolution. Not at all. It was a series of total reinventions, these critical moments where people just completely redefined what the technology was for. So let's dive into that incredible story. All right, so the first great reinvention. This is when the computer gets pulled out of the science lab and shoved right into the corporate office. It basically stops being just a giant calculator and starts becoming a business machine. And this shift from the ENIAC to the UNIVAC wasn't just a simple upgrade, it was a fundamental change in its whole reason for being. The computer was totally redefined. It went from this one-of-a-kind scientific instrument to a commercial product, a tool built to automate all the paperwork of a modern corporation. Now here's the really fascinating part. While the computer's entire purpose was changing so dramatically, its internal logic, that core von Neumann architecture, stayed exactly the same. This one idea, storing the instructions and the data together in the same memory, has somehow stuck around through every single reinvention that came after. Okay, let's jump to the next big reinvention. This one was less about what the computer did and way more about how we as humans related to it. For decades, using a computer was it was like consulting an oracle. You'd submit your questions on these decks of punched cards to a sort of high priest, the operator, and then hours later you'd get a printout back. But the mini computer, that changed everything. Suddenly, the computer became an interactive partner you could have a real-time conversation with. It became a tool to amplify your own brain power. And this is a perfect example of a technical innovation sparking a whole new way of thinking. Companies like Digital Equipment Corporation, or DEC, they pioneered this new type of machine with some clever architectural changes that made computers smaller, way cheaper, and able to talk to you in real time. The third reinvention. Honestly, this might be the most radical one of all. This is the moment the computer finally breaks out of big institutions and finds its way into our homes, becoming, of all things, a personal appliance. What happened here was just a perfect storm, really. You had these incredible breakthroughs in semiconductors, like the computer on a chip, and that collided with this super vibrant hobbyist culture. And then bam, in just 5 short years, all the key ingredients for the personal computer revolution just fell into place. An affordable processor, a kit for tinkerers, a simple programming language, and a standard operating system. And this quote, man, it just captures the spirit of the time perfectly. The personal computer wasn't seen as just another tool for corporations. No, it was seen as this liberating force, a way to actually empower individuals. All right, let's move to the final reinvention in our story. This is where the computer, which had just become personal, now becomes connected. It transforms from this standalone box into a node on a global network. The key innovation that made this happen was local networking, pioneered by something called Ethernet. All of a sudden, you didn't need one giant, crazy expensive mainframe anymore. You could have a whole cluster of cheaper computers all talking to each other at super high speeds, sharing stuff, sharing information. This solved a really fundamental problem. And that problem was this unbelievable gap. See, thanks to Moore's law, computers were getting exponentially faster, like ridiculously fast. But the communication lines connecting them, they were improving at a snail's pace. what Intel's Andrew Grove jokingly called Grove's Law. So high-speed local networks like Ethernet were designed to completely shatter that bottleneck. So after this incredible journey, we kind of have to circle all the way back to our original question. What exactly is a computer? Well, as we've seen, it isn't just one single thing. The definition is a moving target. The computer is really just a concept that has been repeatedly and fundamentally transformed by the people using it and the problems they wanted to solve. It's been a giant brain, a business machine, an interactive partner, a personal appliance, and now a communication device. By the 1990s, this whole cycle of reinvention had sped up so much that people started calling it Internet time. That's a term from Netscape's founder, Jim Clark. He was talking about how the entire life cycle of a technology, from a wild idea to a forgotten relic, was getting compressed into just a few years. The pace of change had just become absolutely breathtaking. Every single one of these reinventions completely changed our world and how we relate to information. The history of the computer is really an unfinished story, one that's constantly being rewritten. And that leaves us with the most exciting question of all. What will the next reinvention be?